What's up, folks? David here, TexasHornsFans.com. The NFL draft is in the books. 5 Longhorns going in the draft. So we'll break it down here. Each pick, surprises, maybe disappointments. But definitely drop your comments below. Let me know what you thought about where these guys went and how you think they might project with their new NFL teams. All right, before we get into it, quick shout out to a sponsor for this video, joinambitiousenergy.com. If you live anywhere in Texas where you can choose your own electricity provider, there's about an 80% chance that you're paying too much money every month. If you don't want to pay more money than you have to every month, head on over to joinambitiousenergy.com. Check the rates for your house, apartment, even your business. See how much you can save, or you can get a completely free analysis of your electricity bill to see how much you're overpaying and to see how much you can keep in your bank account every month. So totally free analysis of your bill. It takes about 90 seconds to do. JoinAmbitiousEnergy.com. All right, so before we dive into each pick, we'll go ahead and name them. Sam Cosmi went first, second round to Washington. Joseph Ossai went next, third round to the Bengals. We had Taquan Graham go into the Falcons in the 5th round. We had Caden Stearns go into the Broncos not long after Graham, also in the 5th round. And then 6th round pick, quarterback Sam Ehlinger gets picked up by the Colts. So that's all picks to me are pretty interesting. That they've got some stuff that I think are worth diving into and looking at. I went back first to look at just the Longhorns draft performance over the past 20 years. Really, I went back to the 2000 draft and kind of broke it up between 2000 and 2010, because the 2010 draft, has players from the 2009 season, the national championship game when they lost to Alabama. So that's Colt, that's Jordan Shipley and those guys. So from 2000 to 2010, which is 11 seasons, right? 11 drafts. There were 45 total Longhorns selected in that draft, or in those drafts. So 45 total draft picks for the Longhorns from 2000 to 2010. I averaged out the round that those players went in. It averages out to be the average round 2.96, so essentially the 3rd round. There were 14 first-round picks from 2000 to 2010. Again, 11 drafts. Comparing that to 2011 to this past weekend's draft, 2021. So still 11 total drafts. In that span, 2011, 2021, there were 31 total Longhorns drafted in that span. The average round, if you just average out what round they went in, compared to the 2.96, this time span, it averages out to 4.13. So basically a full round later. So roughly round 3 and then roughly round 4. So definitely a big drop there. And then also just in addition to a pretty significant drop in just total draft picks. During this time span, 2011-2021, there were only 2 first-round draft picks compared to 14 in the 11 years prior. And also, just to note and remember, there were no Longhorns drafted in the 2014 NFL draft. And I believe 2 drafts within this time frame only had 1 Longhorn drafted. I think even when Deontay Foreman was drafted by the Texans, I think he was the only Longhorn picked. So just an interesting look there at, kind of where where things have been tracking with the Longhorns program producing NFL draft picks, definitely been tracking down. But 5 draft picks this year. Overall, before we dive into each one, no real big surprises for me. I thought Joseph Ossai would go first, but apparently he kind of started sliding a little bit in interviews. I read 2 or 3 reports about that, just kind of sliding a bit just in interviews on, just kind of the X's and O's. But, I thought Taquan Graham might be picked up in the 6th or 7th round. So for him to go in the 5th and be the 3rd Longhorn drafted, I think was kind of surprising to me. Caden Stearns in the 5th round, not too surprised on that. I thought maybe 4th round at a ceiling. Colt being drafted in the 6th round, I thought he probably would not be drafted, or if he was, 6th absolute highest, and then maybe 7th. But if you made me choose before the draft, I would have said that he likely would not have been drafted. But very, very cool for him. And here a little bit later, we'll look at a quick clip from a media availability that they did late Saturday after he was drafted. So going back to the first one, Sam Cosmi drafted by Washington, the Washington team, in the 2nd round. He was the 8th offensive tackle drafted, and he was the only offensive lineman drafted by Washington. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Coming into the 2020 season, I definitely would have said that Sam Cosmi was better than, was probably in the top 5 or 6 of the offensive tackles in college football. Maybe not necessarily offensive linemen in total, but coming in, I think most people probably would have agreed that he was somewhere around top 5, top 6. But he ended up being the 8th offensive tackle drafted. And, what's interesting to me about Washington and their offense, that they're definitely, they won the NFC East almost by default, right? They won with a losing record. I think they were 7-9. But that was definitely the worst division in football. Last year, their quarterback situation was essentially just a trade-off between Dwayne Haskins and Alex Smith. Well, those 2 guys are gone now. Alex Smith is retired, and Haskins was let go. Now you've got the quintessential ultimate journeyman quarterback, Ryan Fitzpatrick, projected to be the starter in Washington. So that doesn't really look well for a passing game. Now, Washington, I thought, had a decent run game last year. Gibson, the rookie, had a pretty good rookie season at running back. But if you look at their stats in total, they were around about ranked number 22, 24, somewhere around there, in terms of pass offense and run offense. So their offense isn't good. Now, having said that, I think Cosmi definitely is a better pass blocker than he is a run blocker at tackle. But looking at the Washington offense, I would say that on paper, that's definitely a rushing offense far more than it is a passing offense, especially bringing in Fitzpatrick, who just bounces around in the league, whichever team needs him for a year or two. So, I definitely think that's something that Cosby's going to have to work on is the run blocking. And I definitely think he could start from week 1, but in terms of what Washington or what their fans might expect from a rookie starter, he just seems to be more of a pass blocking offensive tackle, and he really excels at that, I think. And then the run blocking, I think, is something that he's going to need to work on. So that'll be interesting to see kind of how he's perceived by their fans and what they expect from a 2nd round pick. All right, Joseph Ossai in the 3rd round. Some media outlets, scouts had him listed as an outside linebacker. Some had him listed as a pure edge rusher. So I looked at just the edge rushers, how they were sort of labeled in the draft. Ossai was the 7th edge rusher drafted, which was pretty surprising to me. I don't know throughout the season. I certainly couldn't name you 6 pure edge rushers that were better or that performed better than Ossai. Now, I think it was good that he was moved away from kind of playing more of a linebacker spot in the middle in 2019, and then in 2020 given more of that pure just that pure traditional defensive end edge rusher. And I think he definitely excelled there. I looked at the Bengals sack leaders from last year. Carl Lawson, who was a former, pretty high-rated draft pick a few years ago. He had 5.5 sacks last year for the Bengals, led the team in sacks. So I definitely think Ossai has a chance to get in there and make an impact as a rookie. And I fully expect him to play that same role as more of a pure pass rusher, to get back there and cause chaos in the backfield on pass plays. But also we've seen from Ossai before that he's athletic enough and smart enough to move around when he needs to. If he's called on to cover anything there toward the line of scrimmage. So I definitely think we could see him make an impact in his rookie year. And it's no secret the Bengals are bad. They had the first pick in the draft last year with Joe Burrow, so they need a lot of help. And it's pretty easy for some of these guys on these bad teams to just get overlooked, especially toward the end of the year. So, but I definitely think Ossai could make a big impact in his rookie year, and just that type of position is the magnifying glass is right on those type of players who can just get sacks. I mean, look at the Bosa brothers and what they've done. Chase Young, I mean, these are defensive rookies of the year and playing that traditional defensive end spot. All right, Taquan Graham to the Falcons in the 5th round. I was thinking that if Taquan Graham was going to get drafted, it would be very late. So 5th round to me was actually pretty high, which is cool. I think Longhorns fans are going to miss Taquan Graham a little bit more than they realized. He quietly had some pretty impactful tackles behind the line of scrimmage. I think he only had about 24 total tackles, but a good portion of those were tackles for loss. And I think Graham is one of those types of players who, he's not going to win a lot of just one-on-one battles, especially in the run blocking game, but he is that type of versatile defensive tackle who can move around and knife through the line on his own. So in that sense, he's more of a kind of a specialized weapon at defensive tackle, and not necessarily the type that's just going to stuff the run block up there in the middle. So it'll be interesting to see how the Falcons use him and rotate him in, maybe on more predicted passing plays, maybe on more third downs, and try to use his skill to knife through the offensive line, where he's maybe not as good as somebody who can just plant his feet and not get blown off the ball. So, but we've seen these defensive tackles from Texas go in and have some pretty impressive rookie seasons. Poona Ford was undrafted. He's been great for the Seahawks. Malcolm Roach had some significant playing time for the Saints last year. So it'll be interesting to see how Graham fits in there. Caden Stearns to the Broncos, also in the 5th round. He was the 8th sort of traditional strong side safety drafted. And I looked at some of Denver's stats. they ranked 5th in pass defense last year, which is pretty solid. So them adding Stearns is a pretty interesting, addition to their backfield, their DBs. I didn't look to see if they had lost any DBs from last year, but obviously Stearns is started off his college career as a freshman. I believe he was the Big 12 Defensive Freshman of the Year. He looked like he was just going to be just amazing, and then he's had times where he's just disappeared. He's had some injury issues, and I think with Stearns, looking at his 3 years at Texas, he's definitely more of he excels more when he's coming up to the line of scrimmage, when the play is right in front of him and he's got to go attack it. I think that's when he's at his best. When he's having to cover one-on-one deeper in the defensive backfield, I think he's struggled there. He's good at finding the ball. I mean, we've seen him make some pretty critical interceptions. So I think he's good at recognizing that. I just think he's proven to be that type of safety who's probably going to get beat one-on-one from a decent to good wide receiver. So if they can figure out how to kind of use his skills for that, to where he can kind of keep the play in front of him, he can go attack and make tackles as long as they're right there in front of him, and he's not trying to chase people down. He's not necessarily a ball hawk, but I think his recognition is good enough to where he can put himself in position to make some plays and possibly to make some interceptions. I don't really know how he might fit into what the Broncos are doing with their safeties, just in terms of a depth chart. So I wouldn't expect to see a lot of impactful playing time for him, unless there's some injuries. Another interesting note: PJ Locke is now with the Broncos, so he kind of worked his way into the league, which was pretty cool. Assuming Locke stays and makes the team and all that this year, which it looks like he probably will. But that's a cool that's a cool sort of reunion there with Caden Stearns and PJ Locke. So that'll be interesting to watch. And then 6th pick, Sam the General Ehlinger goes in the 5th pick for the Longhorns, 6th round for Sam. Goes to the Colts. He was the 218th player drafted. And just kind of looking at that, shows you that how different the NFL offense, how different the NFL passing game is than in college. Are there 217 college football players better than Sam Ehlinger just all around? Of course not, right? But this isn't college. It's projected, to the NFL. And, I think it's obvious where Sam struggles the most is in just, accurate deep ball passes with the ability to hit receivers in stride, right? That just kind of zipping the ball down there and timing and hitting receivers in stride. I think Sam got better without question throughout his time at Texas with that. But I think more often than not, we still saw him kind of throwing the ball up and trusting guys like Colin Johnson and LJ Humphrey to just win the battle, right? And he obviously developed a great sort of rapport relationship with the slot receiver, the H receiver, with LJ Humphrey, and then with Devin Duvernay in 2019. 2020 obviously was kind of up in the air with Jake Smith and Jordan Whittington kind of sharing time there. But, I think that's his big downfall, is just he just doesn't possess that sort of quintessential NFL arm. That's not to say that he can't build a career in the NFL. I definitely think he can. He's certainly the type of player you want on your team. No question about that. Also mark down that he was the 10th and last quarterback drafted. So having 10 quarterbacks go in a draft is pretty good. Some drafts, might have 7 or 8, so 10 is a pretty big number. But he was the final quarterback drafted. He's also the first Texas quarterback drafted since Colt McCoy. So think about that. That's a long ways back, okay? That's 11 years. So he joins the Colts, who had Phillip Rivers last year for a year since the Andrew Luck retirement, but the Colts add Carson Wentz, so he projects to be the starter. And then remember, they drafted Jacob Eason out of Washington last year. I believe he was a 4th-round pick last year. So that's kind of what the quarterback room looks like right now. Carson Wentz, Jacob Eason, and Sam. So, and I don't think Jacob Eason had a snap last year, or he at least didn't have any passes. So that'll be interesting to see, could Sam beat out Jacob Eason as the solid, number 2 backup quarterback to Carson Wentz? We've seen Carson Wentz throughout his whole NFL career, 2016 draft, have injuries, so there's nothing that says that Carson Wentz is going to play a full season, this coming year. So one of those guys better be ready to go. And Sam talked about that in the media availability, just his ability to always be prepared, and something that one of the top things that he learned, throughout his time at Texas, was to just always be ready. So, if Jacob Eason might have a little bit of an upper hand just having 1 year in the league, and I think Eason's a pretty decent quarterback, but it's that second string job is could be wide open. So and with Wentz's injury history, that could be an interesting thing to watch. And the Colts have a good offense. That they're missing that kind of top flight lead receiver right now, but Jonathan Taylor, the rookie running back from Wisconsin last year, had a great season as a rusher and receiver too. I think he scored like 12 total touchdowns. So at least the Colts offense knows that they have a legitimate running back that they can kind of count on and turn to, while they're ushering in really brand new quarterbacks. So, and I think it's a cool legacy just going to the Colts, right? Johnny Unitas, Peyton Manning, Andrew Luck. Obviously, Luck didn't, never won a title there, but he was one of the most prolific quarterbacks, every year of his career. So that's an interesting fit, and they're in an interesting division too, which would be cool to be able to maybe see some games when they play the Texans. For those of us here in Texas, maybe we get to see it. So
to be able to even be considered in the NFL draft is an unbelievable blessing, and something that I've always dreamed of. From an emotional standpoint, I'm just so thankful. I know that very few people get to have this opportunity. So I told myself going into it that I wouldn't waste, any of this opportunity on any negative emotion, regardless of what that looks like. And so I'm just so thankful to be in this position, to play this great game, and play at a professional level. I'm super excited to get a chance to continue to learn and play this great game. And it's something that, I'll never take for granted, and I can't wait.
Locked down.
Yeah, no doubt. I will always be prepared to my utmost ability. If there's anything presented to me, I will maximize whatever that looks like, and try to help the team in whatever way that looks like to win. And I will always be prepared as much as possible. And obviously Colt's done a great job of having a long career in the NFL, and he's definitely someone I would love to emulate, and I can't wait for what's to come.
But yeah, congratulations to all those guys. That's awesome. Oh, another couple notes. Brennan Eagles was signed as an undrafted free agent by the Cowboys, and then Tariq Black was signed by the Colts as an undrafted free agent. So 2 wide receivers. Whether or not they make the team, who knows? The Cowboys are obviously pretty stacked at receiver with Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb. It's deep enough to where Brennan Eagles is going to have a hard time if he does make the team. just getting on the field. So that'll be an interesting thing to watch. But congrats to all those guys. It was fun. I love the draft. Like, I would rather watch the draft than the Super Bowl, mainly because I love college football way more than I do the NFL. So it's cool just to see that tradition or transition and to see where these guys might fit in with these teams. Just in terms of potential playing time, potential impact. And, sometimes I feel sorry for some of these guys that just go to bad teams, like Cosmi. It's cool to think that he might start from week one, but in my opinion, Washington is the worst run franchise in the entire NFL. I used to say it was the Browns, but I think the Browns have gotten better. Their team has certainly gotten better, but just in terms of how the decisions that they've made. So I kind of feel sorry for Cosme going to Washington. Washington's just a bad franchise, man. But it'll be fun to watch. I love watching the rookies and how they kind of fit in. So let me know your thoughts below. Drop your comments below. What were you surprised about? Which of the Texas players drafted do you think has the best chance to make an impact this coming season or early on? And then what kind of void does that leave for the 2021 Longhorns, with these guys leaving? So let me know what you think. Give the video a like, share it out. Definitely don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any others. We'll definitely try to do some more stuff, some player interviews throughout the off season. I hate the off season; it's going to be long, but appreciate it, and see you on the next video. Hook 'em.